All right, 2024 Dynasty Superflex, because apparently that's all we're doing right now. Fantasy football tight end tier list. Tight ends, I think, are often overlooked as being only a few of them being really super viable, but I think this class has got a pretty solid group of tight ends that might give you some performance when you grab them at the right spots. So Sam and I are just going to go right through this list. We have the top 20 tight ends right here, so if you see some tight ends missing, that's really why. We're going to list these out accordingly and see where they go. Starting with the stud rookie, Brock Bowers.
I think he's got to be like tier 2 right away, or depends on how we're going to separate these people. There's only 20 tight ends on this list, Kyle. We're going to have to separate out a few of them.
All right, fine. I'll put him in tier 2 for now. But I think he is quickly going to ascend to tier 1. He's got every single thing you want in a tight end right now, and I don't see that changing. The only negative is the team he's on, which is unfortunate for him, but he is going to be a monster. He's going to be a must-have in any Dynasty draft you have or are part of. You'd be a fool not to grab him if he is on the board, barring it's, a top 10 pick or top 12 pick. Please don't. But second, third round,
don't get me wrong. I love the talent. I paid a hefty fee to trade up to draft Brock Bowers in our rookie draft. I agree with you on the talent. Situation, though, is still Gardner Minshew for now, maybe Aiden O'Connell.
No.
I think he's talented, but he's a rookie tight end. And outside of Sam Laporta, who I personally feel is in a tier of his own, but we'll debate that, I'm sure, soon anyway. He'll need to prove it. And I think he's one of the few rookie tight ends that could come in and immediately produce, but the situation is not fantastic. So I think that's what I'm kind of weighing in here as well.
No, it's going to be the Minshew Mania. Pro Bowler last year, I'll add. Next, we got Cade Otton.
Tier 4-ish? Tier 5? What do you think?
I think he's tier 5. He's serviceable.
Yeah.
He's not going to he's serviceable. I don't really know how much more we can say about him. Maybe he gives you 8-10 points a week. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't see it being much more than that. Odds are it'll be less than that some weeks. But the floor is down low and the ceiling is not very high.
I agree. He's a guy, I'm happy with him as a backup tight end, for my cases, week where I need someone to fill in on a bye or whatever it might be. But I'm not very excited as my number one, or I don't have super high hopes for Cade Otton really jumping the ranks here.
Next, we got Cole Kmet.
I think tier 4. I think you and I both aren't big fans of Cole Kmet.
Nope. And he's not in a good situation either.
Yeah, no, he's talented. He's young, but there's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago, and I think he's going to fall down that pecking order pretty quick. He might, maybe in best buy formats or best ball formats where he could have a spike week here and there. He's good, but I do not like him in Dynasty or even redraft this year.
Yeah. Goddard. I think tier 3 is where he belongs. And this is as a Birds fan. I like Goddard. I think he's as talented as any tight end. He could give you some really good games. But he does get hurt here and there. And same with Cole Kmet. There's a lot of mouths to feed in the Eagles. And because of that, Goddard suffers on the offensive side of the ball. Unfortunately.
Yeah. No, Goddard didn't have a great year last year. So I think he's tier 3 for now. He's talented. He's had good productive years. I think if he has another rough year, he probably drops down to tier 2.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think it's any fault of his own. I just don't think he's being fed the ball. And it just kind of is what it is with the scenario he's in. This year, the Eagles just bringing in Dotson, too. It's going to be even harder to get him the ball because Dotson's, while he struggled a little bit at wide receiver 2 on a bad Commanders team, I could see him having a decent year as a wide receiver 3 on our team. I say our team.
Yeah.
Go Birds. Dalton Kincaid.
I think next to Brock Bowers is pretty fair, that tier 2 area. And again, I think it's how we define tier 1 is going to probably change a little bit here. But yeah, I value him alongside where like a couple picks ahead of Brock Bowers is probably where I take Kincaid.
He's a fringe tier 1 for me. Mostly because I don't think we got to see everything he's capable of last year, and that's really the main reason why. He's clearly the tight end 1. He replaced Knox, who was having a good career in Buffalo because they couldn't resist taking Kincaid in the draft last year. But he's got really good upside. Just need to see a little bit more out of him for him to be in tier 1 itself.
I agree. Yeah, he didn't have a monster rookie season, but most rookie tight ends don't. And he could be that number 1 guy in Buffalo this year. So he could, and Brock Bowers could both really explode and be in that top tier conversation.
All right, we got our boy Dalton Schultz.
Probably tier 4 too, or tier 5.
No, I think he's tier 4. I don't think this is Nago Schultz either. He's in a really awful situation in terms of being able to get fed the ball. Similar to Goddard in a sense, that there's a wide receiver core there that is going to eat, and Schultz is going to be left on sidelines in terms of getting offensive play. I think he's going to get stuck blocking a lot, which is obviously the tight end's job, but that's why he's tier 4.
Yeah, no, I was going to say similar to Kmet. Same situation, 3 really good wide receivers. Kmet also has competition from Everett, though, so maybe I'd probably lean Schultz in drafting him over Kmet, but I know Cole's a little bit younger there.
All right, Njoku. Tremendous second half to last year.
Monster.
Yeah, it goes without saying. But I don't think he's tier 2.
No.
I think he's tier 3. Outside of that second half of last year, he's an okay tight end. His career has been okay. Not bad, not great. I think he's a good tight end to have on your fantasy team. He's just not one you're going to need to take early. He's going to give you a steady stream of probably 10 to 12 points most weeks.
Yeah, I tend in most leagues, I'm trying to get a tight end before it gets down to Njoku. I'm fading him a lot this year. Obviously, monster end of the year last year, but that was fueled by primarily Joe Flacco, not Deshaun Watson.
The resurgence.
I don't like Watson. Also, the Browns brought in Jerry Jeudy, so I think he kind of eats into that underneath, like, kind of quick option in the offense there. So I expect Njoku to regress this year. I'd probably take him ahead of Goddard still, but he's not someone I'm very excited about.
Yeah. All right, next we got Evan Engram.
I think the same tier, right? Or tier 2?
I lean 2. The dude was a force last year, and he's just a good receiver. And one thing I want you guys to understand, this is from a fantasy perspective, okay? Does he have the best tight end qualities? Probably not. I don't think he's a great blocker. But he's going to give you points on that offense, and that offense is now in a scenario where Ridley is not there anymore. So I would suspect Engram to get fed a little bit more by Lawrence, which is why I have him at tier 2. And he's not old yet.
Yeah. Yeah, tight ends historically last a bit longer than like running backs and wide receivers. He's 29. He puts up a ton of volume. I think Lawrence trusts him, and I don't think Lawrence has that relationship with Brian Thomas or Gabe Davis yet. Obviously, Kirk is there, but he struggles to stay healthy. So I wouldn't be shocked if Engram is the number 1 target in that offense for a large stretch of the season here.
Mm-hmm. Kittle. He's tier 1. You got to debate me?
For Dynasty, I have a hard time. I think in Dynasty, I'm taking Bowers and Cade over him every time. In terms of production this year, yes, Kittle's tier 1. I would agree. But Dynasty, he's 30. He is coming off an off-season surgery. He does have an injury history. I personally probably put him tier 2, but I'm curious to hear your argument here.
George Kittle has obviously been a staple of the tight ends since he's come to the year, or into the league rather. He's been a top 5 tight end almost every single year he's been in the league. If he's not tier 1 at 30, where are you putting him? Because he's definitely a tier 1 tight end throughout his career. And he's 35.
Kelsey, I probably knocked down to like tier 2. Is probably where I put Kelsey. This year,
it's a good argument. I agree with Kelsey. This year, he's tier 2 or 2-3. I'm using an example for Kittle.
Yeah.
Right? No, he's 35. I get it. He's been a stud the last 5 years.
That's fair. If I change my mind here a little bit, if we view Dynasty in a 3-year window, which I think is how you should evaluate most players, it's hard to project past 3 years. Kittle probably is still a top 5 tight end in the league in terms of production. Mm-hmm. Especially, we've talked a lot about Ayuk or Debo, one of them being gone in the next year. He's going to see an uptick in volume. And even if he doesn't, he's still got that incredibly high floor.
He does. And he speaking of tight end with capabilities, he's one of the best blockers in the league. And I know that has no impact on fantasy. The dude is just a really, really good tight end. And it's hard to say otherwise of knocking him down until I see a reason to do so. His performance has been there perennially, and he's 30. As we've said, tight ends tend to have a longer life in football. I can see him doing this for another few years at least. We'll revisit this next year and see if we're right or wrong. Hunter Henry.
I feel like he's, Cade Otton or below.
He's an enigma, man. I've seen Henry have some good games. I've seen him have some decent years. But he's kind of forgotten, I think, often. Like, he doesn't get drafted or he just goes late. Or then he'll randomly have a spiel of, like, a few good games, and then he gets picked up on the waiver wire, and then he gets dropped a week later. That's like Hunter Henry's career in fantasy football. I'm not going to get any more details about him. Let's move to the next guy. Ferguson.
I really like Ferguson this year. I don't think I put him on tier 2. I don't think he's there, but I put him at the high end of tier 3 is where I view him.
He's young.
Yeah, he's 25. I think there's, like, last year he was the number 2 guy in Dallas. Like, Cooks and him kind of probably 50-50 as that number 2 option. I think this year Cooks is a year older, dealing with more injuries kind of in camp, whatever it might be. I think Ferguson is a solid tight end. Is he an elite level guy like the guys like Bauer and Kincaid and Kittle? No. But very rarely do we get to the 9th round of the fantasy draft in most previous years and get a guy who we think is like a safe floor at least. Yeah. So I like Ferguson, especially if you miss out on one of those top tier guys.
Yeah, speaking of top tier guys, the Pitts.
I think we're going to have a big tier 2, I think. But it's one of those guys, like, he had a monster rookie season, and then fell off the face of the earth for the past 2 years.
He's such an enigma. He was obviously drafted super high. I think he went, 4th overall, off the top of my head, in his draft.
9, but yeah, some were top 10, yeah.
And was expected to be absolutely ridiculous, physically gifted, everything you can hear under the moon. You heard about this guy, and has lived up to any of it. And the thing is he's been in a situation that's been like absolute garbage, where not just the offense being poor with like Ritter at QB, but then he's not even utilized like at all, and they're throwing to Jonnu Smith last year. Like, Arthur Smith running that team was just strange in every sense of the word, between Pitts and Bijan just practically not being used when you got the talent and you don't use them. But he should be so much better than he is, and this year is kind of like a put up or shut up year. I know he's being tested at wide receiver a little bit, but like, if it doesn't happen this year, he's going to drop. Like, clearly something's off, and we're all wrong because we're just like, what's going on with this guy?
Yeah, no, I agree. This year he's at tier 2, but next year he's either going to be a clear-cut tier 1 or he's going to be tier 6 and drafted in the very last round of fantasy drafts. I don't see any in between unless he gets injured right away.
Mark Andrews.
Yeah. It's again a situation where Andrews and Kittle both go after guys like Kincaid, Pitts, and Bowers in startup dynasty drafts. I tend to agree with that, but when we're looking at this as well, in terms of who's going to help you win right now, Mark Andrews, I think, is still one of those guys who can help you do that, and for maybe a little bit better value. Yeah. Well, he did, but then he got hurt for the playoff run. But I had my boy McBride to pick up the slack. So
true.
Yeah, no, we're a little bit chasing that top season that he had back in 2021. He's obviously had some injuries and issues kind of along the way, but there's still not really a target in Baltimore that, other than Zay Flowers, is really going to eat into his production that much. So,
and the fact is, if and this goes with any player on this list, I want to emphasize that he's healthy, he's going to perform better than most of the tight ends on this list. That's the big thing, and he's what, 29, 28?
I think so.
29, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Due to talent, we know he's been a good tight end pretty much his entire time. He's always been a top performing tight end. Him, Kelsey, Kittle, the last 5 years. You can't mention it without Andrews in that list in the top 5. The reason I'm putting him where we're putting him here is because he's going to give you points if he's healthy, and they're going to be more points than Kincaid, Bowers, Pitts, and Engram right now, and probably over the next 2-3 years if he's healthy.
Yeah.
Granted, maybe Bowers I think elevates over him, but I don't see the other one surpassing him in terms of just volume. Because also, like, the Ravens just don't have receivers. They have Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I agree. He's pretty safe as long as he stays healthy and doesn't get into any more car crashes. So
yes, yeah, well, yeah, God forbid. Travis Kelce.
I think wouldn't he just have like a super long tier 2, or what? I'm curious to hear what you think.
I'm putting him at 3. And that goes without saying, you draft him this year, he's probably going to give you the most points out of any tight end on this list. And if he's not, he's definitely going to be top 3. He's 35. Turns 36 during the season. He's not getting any younger. And that's a big reason that's like the reason he's tier 3. Like, I drafted, when we started our other Dynasty League, what was it, like 5 years ago? I picked him, he was 30. That was a steal then.
Yeah.
But now, like, at 35, there's no. I don't think he's going to play to 40 like Antonio Gates. I'd be very, very surprised. He's going to hit that cliff at some point where it's going to start falling off. I don't see it happening this year. But due to the fact of his age, I can't put him ahead of what you see above him. Everyone above him is younger. And they're going to perform.
Yeah, and when we were reviewing this in terms of how you're drafting too, if you're drafting Kelsey, you're not going to have an opportunity to draft one of these young potential stud or tight ends.
Yeah, because he's still going to go early.
Yeah, you're going to have to grab someone. Like, if you draft Kelsey, your best bet is maybe a guy like Freiermuth a couple rounds later. But then you probably have some holes in the rest of your team. So he makes drafting difficult if you take him, but he can produce a lot this year.
All right, we're gonna move to Font. Noah Font. I'm putting him in tier 6. I think he's a sleeper pick. He has potential upside this year, but I need to see it. I don't see him being higher than this. He's still young. Yeah. So I think he is definitely someone who should be drafted, but I need to see something from him before I could warn him going anywhere else.
Yeah, I think he's like a poor man's Kyle Pitts. He obviously had a really good rookie year, but hasn't done much over the past 2 seasons. So upside's there, but production has not.
Freiermuth, tier 4.
I agree.
He's another one that's like, I think could be better than he is, but has been in a bad situation, and the situation hasn't been better. It might be worse. I don't know. We're going to find out this year. But his quarterback play is obviously not great. George Pickens is really the only other person on that team catching passes, next to maybe Jalen Warren. Freiermuth is, for that reason, valuable. He's a good grab late in drafts. Okay, I do want to say that. Like, if you're holding out on tight end, I don't think he's going to be a bad grab in rounds 9 to 12. If you need a tight end still. It's just where he stands next to these other guys, he doesn't belong any higher.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's got top 10 upside, but he has a pretty bad concussion history, which I think is scary for a tight end because they get put in bad situations.
Yeah.
If he has to retire early because of that, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. Sammy Laporta.
Tier 1, clear cut. I would put him as Sam Laporta above Tier 1 if I could. He's the best rookie tight end we've ever seen. That is not debatable. He blew records out of the water for a rookie tight end. And he's still in a great situation. He's in a great offense. I don't think he's going to really regress like you did. I think if anything, I think Jameson Williams might help take the top off of defenses a little bit more. I think we'll still see, plenty of targets come his way, though. I don't think Williams is someone who steals targets. I think he just makes the offense easier to operate in. I like him a lot. I'm very happy to have him in one of our leagues now.
While I don't disagree that he's Tier 1 after his rookie season, I do think you're going to see a regression. He's super young. He's usually the first tight end going off boards in every draft I've been in. I don't think I've seen him not go number 1 in the 3 we've had. Needless to say, he's asked to study at a monster rookie year. I don't see him not having, he's going to have a really good year this year, but I doubt he does what he did last year. I would be absolutely floored. I think defense are going to be more in tune of what he is capable of now, and he's going to get a little bit of that defensive scheme looking out for him. And that's why you're going to see a little bit of a regression overall this year. But that doesn't change the fact that this is Dynasty. He's, 24? Maybe 23, I'm not sure. And he's got so much upside for the length of his career that is remaining right now. And even if he does 80-90% of what he did his rookie year the rest of his career, you got a top flight fantasy tight end.
Yeah. No, I think you're locking in a top 5 tight end for the next several years.
Yep. And you got Hawk, fresh off the injury.
I think you got to put him end of Tier 2, maybe Tier 3. I don't know.
He's 28?
Yeah, 27, 28. If he didn't get injured, he's clearly Tier 1, I think.
27.
Yeah, I think without the injury, he's clear Tier 1, but it was a big injury to his knee. It's going to take time to recover. He's coming back to Sam Darnold as well. So I think this might be a wash of a year for him, and for that reason alone, I just can't put him in Tier 1. He could bounce back. He's a great tight end. He's amazing, but he just bad situation, bad injury. I think we got to wait and see how it pans out.
Yeah, I agree. I'm hard pressed. I can't put him obviously at Tier 1. I think if he was healthy all year last year, he'd probably be sitting in Tier 1. But until we see what he actually looks like coming back this year, can't put him anywhere else. All right, Trey McBride.
I think he's got to be a Tier 1 guy too.
Tier 1, really?
Yeah, you don't think so after last year and his age and his production?
He's 24. He had a little over 800 yards receiving. He had a really good year. I don't know.
I think at least at the top of Tier 2. If you're not going to do Tier 1.
I mean, I think he's top of Tier 2. I can't put him on the level of these guys and what they generally do. He's a fringe Tier 1 for me.
Okay, that's fair.
He had a good year. I'm not going to deny that. His first year was garbage. Absolute garbage. And I think that's part of it. For me, I need to see it happen again. That last year just wasn't a situation where they didn't have anyone else to throw to, and he reaped the benefit of the volume. Obviously, there's a potential for that to be the case where he's a worthwhile grab, but he's obviously going high in Dynasty Dress for a reason. He's a talented dude. He showed it. But I think that volume was there because there was no one else for them to throw to last year. Hollywood Brown went out, obviously, with injury, and that was it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. His rookie year, though, it wasn't dissimilar from other tight end, rookie tight ends. He was behind Zach Ertz. He kind of grew into that role, and it wasn't he didn't have an immediate breakout last year either. It took him a few weeks to kind of.
Behind Ertz.
Yeah, behind Ertz, and I think it was like week 6, week 7 where it really started to take off.
Yep. When Ertz went out.
I just think we saw the ascension. I don't think, although Marvin Harrison's there, and obviously he's going to demand probably 25-30% target share. I don't think that necessarily means McBride loses his target share.
Yep.
I expect more guys like Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch to kind of just fight over the scraps. I like McBride, but I think it's fair maybe let's see him do it again to push him to tier 1.
Yeah. And our last one, Conkey.
Yeah, no arguments there. I think he's a solid backup.
Yeah, he might be tier 6. Tier 5 might be dual service. I think he's got some talent when it comes down to it. He's had some really good games. I picked him up a couple, like 2 years ago, and he was a great spot start for a few while my tight end was down. But he's a good backup to have on your bench. I know, like I said, coming to this, guys, we are obviously missing some of the tight ends. This is only just the top 20. There are obviously a few others out there, some in the draft that came through, like Sinnott, who's not on this list, who would definitely probably be sitting at like tier 4 with potential upside as a rookie. But for now, this is probably the core of what you're going to see, almost in the order of how you would see them go off the draft boards. All right.
Yeah.
Barring George Kittle and Mark Andrews falling behind, as we stated as we went through this, because they're older. But they're going to give you upside this year in fantasy, no matter how you spin it. If they're healthy, they're going to perform, and they're going to put up points. So just keep that in mind as you're going through your Dynasty Superflex drafts. Tight end is obviously an important decision, and there are varying cliffs of capability in tight ends. It's a very thin position as far as ones that are going to give you points. So, on that note, we will wrap this one up. Obviously, guys, as always, anything you want to add, we would love to hear it in the comments, and we will see you in the next video.